I hope y'all's conversations went really well. And I got to hear what my table was like in high school, and there were pretty great people in high school. I think, at least for the most part. For me, I don't know what your experience was in high school, but for me, high school for me was hands down one of my favorite times in my life. I was thriving as I was thriving academically and the class clown. Now, when I'm in school, I felt like I was letting the students down. The teachers, not so much. They probably enjoyed when I wasn't in school. Now, sports, on the other hand, that's a whole different subject. For sports, I did basketball. I was all right. Did football, pretty good. Did soccer, track. Now, baseball, that was a tragedy. So I remember we're doing warm-ups in during baseball practice. So you're just tossing the ball around with your teammate. And I remember, I'm like, all right. Because one of my teammates left, the person I was tossing the ball to left. So I, tossed the ball up, and I try to catch it. Simple, right? I mean, you just put the glove right here, and the ball comes down. But I somehow missed the ball, and it hit my nose, and I started bleeding. And then I left practice, never went back again. So that's how my baseball career went. Now, I was well known in school, but I don't know, I wasn't into that idea of being popular. I feel like there was a lot you missed out on when you were always surrounding yourself with people. And people knew me as a happy person. So if there was a movie called Happy Man, that's me right there. If you know anybody in Hollywood, I'm pitching it out there. Movie called Happy Man. I mean, can you imagine that? Just hey, how you doing? Good day. Have a great day. You're just smiling. Nothing you experience in life can bring down that smile. That was me. But not everything was always good for me. There are moments where I experienced a lot of pain and heartache. When I wasn't around people, I struggled with my mental health. When I was alone, those were the moments where the thoughts would just enter my mind, and I would entertain them like, who are you? What do you have to live up to? What's your purpose? What are you doing here? Nobody loves you. That was my thoughts. Having nobody to talk to. Just that lonely feeling as if nobody saw you in this world. Being surrounded by so many people in my life, yet still feeling lonely. That nobody sees me. I had became really close friends with my depression. And nobody knew. I couldn't shake the feeling of loneliness and hopelessness, even when I was around people. Now, alone, I'm filled with sadness, pain, heartache, as if my life meant nothing, as I was just another piece in this earth awaiting to die with no purpose, no meaning. But then when I'm around people, oh man, I could smile all day. That was me. Happy man. Now, I was authentic. I loved people. I loved hanging out with people. I can't help but see parts of my story in the story of Zacchaeus. So the scripture that we'll be reading today comes from Luke chapter 9, verses 1 to 10. Now Jesus was passing through a town called Jericho, and there lived a man named Zacchaeus, who was a chief tax collector. He had it all, but at the same time had nothing. In the sense that he was well off financially, but he was spiritually and emotionally wounded. He was strongly disliked and avoided by his own people, for he was seen as a traitor. He was a man who betrayed his own people to work for the Roman government. I mean, if you were living this time, you hated Zacchaeus with passion. Now, I can imagine Zacchaeus, he had it all. The money. But at the same time, he lacked something that we all need in our lives. Friends. People, a community. He lacked that. So I could envision myself in the story of Zacchaeus as Zacchaeus, at the end of the day of collecting taxes from people, he walks home with his head down, knowing that he's going home to an empty house. And when he gets there, the feeling of being unfulfilled, feeling deserted, and of there's no meaning or purpose to his life. You could imagine Zacchaeus being having one of the nicest houses on the block, but no friends to invite. The deep loneliness he felt. Now, at some point in his life, Zacchaeus had heard stories of Jesus, the leper who was cleansed, the woman who was forgiven, the feeding of 5,000, Lazarus who was raised from the dead. He had heard of them all. Maybe some people describe Jesus as a prophet, a healer, a savior, or a lover of sinners in their stories. But I believe as Zacchaeus heard these stories as he's walking by, he began to wonder, do I have a space? Can this just guy they're talking about love me like he loves them? Can he do for me what he has done for them? He also knew that Jesus was going to be passing through Jericho on this particular day. I bet if they had calendars back then, he had it circled on his calendar, no tax day. He was filled with curiosity and longed to get a glimpse of Jesus. Even though Zacchaeus was shady, manipulative, and the lowest of the low, he still sought God. Despite what we've been through, how messed up we are, we can still seek after Jesus. And the reality is that we are all messed up. We all feel small in some areas of our lives where we feel like we don't measure up. But when we choose to embrace our shortcomings, we give space for us to encounter the living God. There's a song called Zacchaeus, Wee Little Man. Y'all heard? Yeah, she sang the song. She was ahead of me. So it goes something like, Zacchaeus was a wee little man. A wee little man was he. That's all I know, really. Stops right there. Tree, what I wanted to see. You come down. Yeah. Yeah. Because of his stature, he felt. Because of his stature, he faced opposition from the crowd. He couldn't get past all the people who kept getting in his way. Here's one of the moving things of the story of Zacchaeus, and it's that he didn't give up on his pursuit of wanting to see Jesus. He braved the crowd in order to see Jesus for himself. Sometimes the stories we hear about Jesus aren't enough. Sometimes we hear the stories of things that just God has done in people's lives, but those stories are not enough sometimes. And sometimes we seek for God to do what he has done for other people's lives. We seek that experience, that embrace from God that others have experienced. Sometimes the stories are not enough. I can see the crowd pushing him away and telling him to leave as if he didn't belong in the same room as Jesus. His heart desired and his soul longed for Christ. There was no one, not even anything in his life that would have happened that day that would have kept him from pursuing to see Jesus in that crowd. There was nothing. He was a man on a mission. He had an appointment with God, and there's no way he's going to miss it. Sometimes in your pursuit of God, you will face obstacles, but your desire to even just see a glimpse of God must be what drives you forward in the midst of your opposition. Verses 4-8 states, he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. So he hurried and came down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all grumbled. He has gone in the guest of a man who's a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. At this moment, there was only one way for Zacchaeus to see Jesus, and it was by climbing the sycamore tree. But even before he gets to the tree, even before he has the thought of like, okay, I can get past this crowd, but there's a tree ahead of me. I'm going to go to that tree so I'll get a glimpse. Before even all these things happen, Jesus was already heading there. Oh, never mind. God is continuously giving us opportunities to encounter him. And sometimes we miss them when we allow the cares of this world to occupy our minds. We just came to the tree in the midst of the crowd. He called out Zacchaeus by name and singled him out in the midst of all the crowd. The shock Zacchaeus must have experienced as he was in the presence of Christ and being noticed in a good way. Maybe for the first time, somebody was seeing something good in Zacchaeus. And maybe he had forgotten what it feels like to be joyful. The one the crowd seeks after sees me. The God who created everything I've witnessed sees me and calls me out by name. Now, Jesus is the only person that could be like, I must come to your house today. No invitation needed. He's inviting himself over to Zacchaeus' house. I mean, I don't know a lot of people could do that, but nobody can touch Jesus on that. And at this declaration, Zacchaeus can't contain himself. There's an overwhelming joy and peace and calmness that we experience when we encounter God. Verses 9-10 state, and Jesus said to him, Today salvation has come to this house, since he also is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. Even the self-righteous people in the crowd were especially critical of Jesus' interest in men like Zacchaeus. How? Why? Why has this just guy become interested in a man who's a traitor, a cheater? How and why? Now, Christ was demonstrating his mission to seek and to save the lost through a man like Zacchaeus. He had become a friend to Zacchaeus. Now, during my dark moments in high school, I always found it hard to open up to people. That's not something I grew up doing, so I always found it difficult. So nobody knew my struggles. But when my depression was really bad, and I had nobody to lean on, and I was just in a dark room just crying. Sometimes crying myself to sleep, and having that lonely feeling. when my thoughts were so far gone, there was one person I knew I can call upon. And Jesus became my friend. He became the one I leaned on. Maybe in your own life you're experiencing brokenness, loneliness, or hopelessness. Maybe this is just a way of showing up in your life, calling out your name and seeking you out through my own story, through the story of Zacchaeus. There's nothing worth more than a simple embrace of God's presence, where restoration, redemption, and salvation are found.
Well, here's what I'd love to do. Man, that was powerful. Thank you, Jimmy. Let's just take a moment to talk about that around your tables. Maybe just ask the question, what's one thing that stood out to me in either Jimmy's story or the story of Zacchaeus? What's one thing that I'm maybe going to walk away with tonight remembering? So let's hang out a little bit longer, discuss around your tables, and we'll keep going here.